Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, we're joined by the indomitable Kate today. So, Kate, what's a baby now? 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, he's 4.5 months. So
4.5.
yep.
Yeah. So, new mother here. Congratulations. That's always an exciting and sometimes sleepless time.
Thank you. It's been fun.
And we don't have Bob here today. He got stuck somewhere doing something. I wasn't quite clear on the communication, but Kate, we have a pretty good turnout, and I'll briefly introduce you and then let you kind of introduce yourself. But we've been working with, Kate, with your company for probably a few years before you joined, and you've been around for forever. So the company is now called Linked Selling, which means you do Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn marketing. I don't, maybe some others that I'm not aware of. For the martial arts schools, we found Facebook and secondarily Instagram extremely productive. So far, we're still trying to figure out how to make LinkedIn productive for the martial arts schools. I don't think we've stumbled across anything much for generating students for that platform. But let me turn it over to you, Kate, and pick it up from there.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, coming up on my 8th year, so it's been a while working
Oh, wow.
together. Yeah.
So probably 10 years because or at least 9, because I know we were working with the organization before you joined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back when Kim Walsh Phillips had started the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. So over the last I think for 5 years or so, we've been doing Facebook ads for martial arts studios and helping them to generate more new students, and have had a lot of success throughout that entire time frame. And even pivoting during COVID to offering virtual ads and classes was a really big help for a lot of the studios that we worked with during that time, and even helped keep some of them alive, getting the extra traffic coming through, even if it was virtual. So a lot of success in working with our studios. And over the last, I pulled a report the other day, and I think we're at 64 studios that we've worked with over time. And so lots of experience in the space, both in the US mostly, of course, and then we have worked in Canada and the UK as well. So lots of experience across the board. But we've also done a lot with helping studios determine offers. We've rotated a lot of different offers throughout the years, from anything from 2 free weeks is pretty standard where we end up starting people. And then we've done a lot of variations of different offers, from some paid offers to short-term offers to summer classes, camps, specials during seasons, all kinds of different things. So you name it, we've pretty much done it in any type of form for a new offer to get people in the door. And I've had a lot of success, and we set up everything for each studio. So from your Facebook ads, and we're rotating creative on a very regular basis and keeping an eye on it so that we're making sure it's getting as many eyes on it as possible. But we also set up some of the back end for you as well for tracking purposes and making sure that everything, each lead that comes through is getting follow-ups by email and text messages that are automated. And of course, we're sending notifications to you and your staff so that you can call them as well right after they come through, ideally, to get them scheduled for their first intro class and coming in. So I'll share my screen here and share some results that we're currently seeing. Actually, Master Oliver, can you make me a co-host?
Oh, yes, you bet.
Thanks.
You should be good.
Cool. Okay. Okay, does everyone see that? I'll make this bigger as well.
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. All right, so as you can see, we have a lot of variation here, and this is how we track internally. Each studio also receives their own customized reporting, of course, and their own tracking spreadsheets that are all set up for them. But you can see here we have the number of opt-ins that are coming in, and this is just a partial of a month here. So we'll look at this month to showcase a full month of information. So we have number of opt-ins, so that's number of people that have raised their hand and said that they're interested in the offer, whatever that is across the board for each of the schools. And then that cost per opt-in is the ad spend that goes into getting that opt-in on Facebook. And then their total ad spend month to date at the for the studio there. So as you can see, most of our studios range anywhere from $10 to $50 on the really high end, as to number of the cost per lead coming in. And again, that's one parent that is raising their hand and saying that they're interested in the offer for their students, for their kids, not students. Or we also have run adult ads too. So either way, it's people raising their hand and saying yes. A lot of these do end up turning into multiple enrollments because of siblings and additional family members. So we're not tracking like the number of people that come off a specific ad. But a lot of times it ends up looking like there's, multiple kids coming in off of one offer, and one ad spend coming through. And each of the times that we're doing this, people are receiving reminder emails to call the studio and book their appointment. Or a lot of times we have it set up so the studio has an online calendar where people can book their intro classes right from the start, which is really helpful, and helps, get that first step and get them booked. And then, of course, we always recommend that the studio follow up and call each individual that comes through, no matter what, whether they booked or not, so that you're starting to build that relationship, as I'm sure Master Oliver and Master Smith talk about all the time.
Yeah, continually.
Yeah. Yeah. So so this is kind of a snapshot of the results that we've seen. I believe this was August and September. So a little bit of old data, but very similar across the board. And most of our averages have stayed pretty similar across the last 5 years. Some ups and downs with things changing on Facebook, but one thing that's good with working with us is something you don't have to worry about. We're taking care of making optimizations and making sure that your ads are performing well before they start to run into a problem. So if something's starting to slow down, we take care of updating it right away and making sure that we're communicating that with you so that you're getting the most out of every dollar that you're spending on Facebook.
Yeah, and Kate, before we move off of this too quickly, why don't we take a look at actual results here, and let's pick a school that's maybe kind of in the median.
Sure.
So if we looked at I don't know, there's
Probably like a $20 or so.
yeah, $20 or $25 lead. We have what as high as 50. Highest I see is 53 and some change, and the lowest I see is 7. We'll assume that 7 isn't going to be representative, and 53, may not be. But if we took 25, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we took somebody with a $25 cost of lead, and well, here's Marty, who's in Santa Rosa. He has 27 leads for the month, and then we have David Young Love, who's got 28 for the month, and we've got John Davis, who's got 25 leads for the month. And we have I think a peak up to like 91 up in Rochester, 87 in Manhattan, 103 up in Canada. But if we took kind of those medians, let's say we had 25 leads at $25 a lead. Everybody walk through what that would be financially. So a $25 cost of opt-in, if we hit kind of worst case, 50% of them made an appointment, we'd be at $50 per appointment. And then if we ended up kind of with worst case at that point, half of them showed up for an intro, which really would be a bad ratio. That'd be $100 per intro. And if we ended up with half of them enrolled, that'd be a $200 enrollment. Now, to be fair on the numbers, Kate, you guys charge a fee to do this.
Yep.
So we'd have to average that into the 25 leads as well. But what you want to do with any of this stuff, so if you look at all of these numbers, what we are telling every school now that we're working with, and of course there's some variability, but we want to generate about 100 leads or more per month. And there are some schools that are getting pretty close to doing 100 leads, a couple who are getting around 100 just by Facebook. My argument is, and this isn't trying to argue against your interest, Kate, is really you should have kind of equal dispersion between Facebook and Google as one tranche. Community outreach, working with local elementary schools, businesses, local organizations with another group. And especially once you're over about 100 students, you should have about an equal number, again, from internal referral systems. Some people really ramp up internal referral systems once they have some critical mass. Jason has a little machine going on in his school with birthday parties and is generating quite a number there. I would argue with him that he wants to not let up on Facebook or Google, but he also wants to not let up on elementary school outreach and so forth, no matter how well the birthday parties are working. Same as I would argue somebody who's generating 97 or 87 or 90 leads from Facebook, they should still make sure they're doing a good job in Google. They should make sure they're doing a good job in the other areas. But kind of the main thing is when they're looking at this, okay, we see, and as you know, there's been what I've not too charitably called a bozo explosion. The most recent bozo explosion has been of agencies. So, every martial artist, Tom, Dick, and Harry, in fact, several of them who are clients of yours through me, are suddenly telling people they're marketing geniuses. And really what they're doing is they're running an agency behind the scenes where they're facilitating Facebook ads and Google. The biggest complaint I've gotten third hand by some of those is they've subcontracted out a team of people in the Philippines. And they think they're getting coaching. Really what they're getting is they're getting a tech guy in the Philippines who's handling their Facebook ads and then, has a 3-ring notebook of some coaching advice to give them. What I have found different in our working relationship, in part because I think we get together religiously 2, sometimes more times per month and go through the school numbers pretty diligently. But most of these other agencies seem like they're 1 or 2 trick ponies. They oftentimes are really good out the gate. They have an offer that's converting pretty well. They generate quite a bit of lead flow. Oftentimes, once that offer dries up, which can take 3 to 6 or 12 weeks, I mean, that's why you have to pay close attention to it. Oftentimes, they don't have another trick in the can. Sometimes they have maybe a second, but pretty quickly, they run out of things to throw at the market. We've been really good, as you said at the outset, coming up with a rotating different offers. The standard kind of becomes the 2 free weeks. Sometimes it's a paid offer. Sometimes it's a free offer. Sometimes it's a free gift or something for an opt-in that then leads to an offer. Walk them through a little bit of that process of the comparison between a free offer and a paid offer and the comparison of why you would rotate offers.
Yeah, sure. So, really, no matter where you're located, and this is true for urban, suburban, rural, anything in between, we're targeting a specific geographic location. So within a certain amount of time, that offer whatever it is going to get exhausted in being shown to the same group of people each month. So if someone sees your ad multiple times throughout the month, there is an end point to each offer that it starts to Facebook stops showing it to people because they've seen it too many times already and haven't reacted. So we want to refresh that as much as possible and keep an eye on that so that we're making sure that we're changing up the offer as it's getting to that point of getting exhausted within your area. Like Master Oliver said, sometimes that's a couple weeks, sometimes something's working really well, and it's running for a couple of months, and we're just keeping a close eye on it, changing up some images and that sort of thing. We're always making changes on the ads when we need to, whether that's new images or we're talking through starting a whole new offer, and making sure that your studio has everything that you need. So a lot of times, yes, it's 2 free weeks or $10 or 10 classes for $27. We've done a bunch. We've done 4 weeks for $99. Like seriously, almost every type of offer that's out there we've done. And the offer itself needs to be attractive, but really doesn't hugely matter in the grand scheme of things, because still the goal is to get people enrolled within those first couple of classes so that they're not even taking advantage of the entire offer of whatever it was. You're getting them committed and enrolled as soon as possible after their first couple of classes. So we work with you on creating all of that information, and we're constantly having multiple ads running at any given time so that people are seeing different materials, different images, different ad copy, all of that kind of stuff. We take care of it for you. And then, one thing that we kind of mentioned earlier is in the variation of the costs that we're seeing across the board, it does depend on a little bit of how much your geography affects that. So if you're targeting in a big urban area and you're targeting 3-mile radius, maybe not in an urban area, not necessarily that big, but we'll just use that as an example, a 3-mile radius, and there's 500,000 people in that area is a little bit different than targeting a 10-mile radius with 100,000 people in it. So we're keeping track of all of that as well. But it is always good to be advertising, whether that's paid advertising or getting yourself out in the community in a lot of different ways, because even if someone sees you at the school, if you had a presentation at the elementary school or something along those lines, then they're seeing your Facebook ad and they're being reminded like, oh, I'm going to opt in for that, or vice versa. So, making sure that you're being seen on a lot of different levels, whether that be Facebook, Google, in community events, all of that kind of stuff, it really helps reinforce the fact that you're there, and it keeps you top of mind so that, maybe they didn't react the first time that they saw you, but they might react the second time and actually opt in for something, even if they've seen you a couple of times, especially. So it's good to be in all those different spots and, complete the Parthenon, as you like to say.
Yeah. To steal my theft of Jay Abraham's terminology. The to anchor what you just said, Kate, is I think of, I mean, going back a long time, advertising, especially martial arts schools, I think of Facebook as being more like newspaper ads and TV ads that we did in the past, where Google is more like the yellow pages. And the Google really doesn't have, short of retargeting ads, really doesn't have a branding effect that you get. And, we're always focused on direct response, meaning in this case, they click an ad and they fill out a form and then they contact you or you contact them. But Facebook and the other social media platforms does have a branding effect that people don't get from search. And so anyway, we had one of our bigger clients just a couple weeks ago made the comment that I thought was wrong. They basically taken all of his Facebook marketing and put it into Google because he found out he wasn't, and he didn't use this terminology, I'll use this terminology, but he wasn't getting all the click inventory he could. And my argument was those are two completely separate issues. You want to get all the click inventory you can from Google. So if you're not putting enough money into Google and therefore people are searching on keywords looking for martial arts lessons, you want them all. But at the same time, you want enough budget going into Facebook that you're both getting a reasonable cost per lead, meaning you're going to have a positive ROI. I would define that for our purposes, which is really unusual, but is that we get our money back the day somebody enrolls. So if somebody pays 500 plus 397 to enroll, if it costs us less than that, and in most cases a lot less than that, for the enrollment, we're getting our money back day one. But really the other impact is they see you 28 times, 30 times, 40 times. And compare it to the old newspaper, magazine, TV, not that those media or any of them are dead, magazines and newspapers are struggling. But back then I was always wanting them to see the ad 7 or 8 times before it had an impact. I joked with a high level marketing guy a couple of days ago, but I said it went from 7 times to 83 times. But I'm not sure that's wrong. They have to see between all the different media, they have to see you over and over and over again for it to register. How would you think about Facebook as a branding media?
Absolutely. Yeah. So every ad that's run for you on Facebook does show up in as your studio. So here is the example. You can see that your studio name is showing up here. And this is just one example of an image, but we also run a lot of images that are actual images from the studio, like people in classes, students, all of that kind of stuff. So there is a strong branding effect that happens from Facebook. And since the ad is going to a broader target market within your area, that's much more than what people would see on Google, because you're only going to see your school information on Google if someone's actually putting in that term martial arts classes or searching specifically for that. They're very high intent based focused on that. Whereas on Facebook, you're just going to show up in people's feeds if they fit into that target market. And most of our target markets are pretty, and our audiences are pretty broad as to, parents of toddlers through high schoolers, and living in that certain geographic location and radius within there. So we have some other targeting parameters on top of that, but that's the general gist of it. So if you fit into that, likely you're going to see one of our ads. And again, you're going to hopefully see that ad multiple times, because, you're seeing it on a Tuesday and then you're seeing it again the following Friday, and Facebook is showing it to you multiple times so that you get it in front of you multiple times so that people are actually taking that action later on. Because we all know,
Right.
You might catch some people that see it the first time and take action, but most of the time it's always going to be needing to see it multiple times and in multiple different media platforms as well as just Facebook.
Yeah. And what I have said many times over the last few weeks to different people is, really what I wanted to do is when they come into the school the first time and I ask, how did you find out about us? And I'm going to ask that every step of the way. I really want the answer to be, oh my God, I see you everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Where didn't I find out about you? Where didn't I see you? And if you're not getting that reaction to people, oftentimes that means you have blinders on and you just, are capturing them on Google, or you're just are targeting one marketing activity rather than a whole bunch of them.
Yep. And in a lot of our ads too, again, this is just one specific example of one. We use a lot of the value of martial arts as well. And of course, there's the offer attached to it, but we'll use things like copy related around anti-bullying, or, that type of information, growing the self-confidence and discipline of your children, that sort of thing. So you're getting a lot of value proposition in the ads in addition to the offer. So it's not just full on here's the offer right in front of their faces. They're getting a variety and they're seeing a variety of different values as to why martial arts is good for their family.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Kate, why don't we see if there's any questions on any of this before we go any further?
Sure.
Anybody have any questions?
Just
No?
unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, yeah.
Miss Oliver, I have a question. On the
Go ahead.
the first screen she had like the ad spend, like a green column.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
that's it. The green column, and then she had like the yellow column. It might be a stupid question, but what was the difference between the two? I couldn't.
Sorry about that.
Different months.
Yeah, it's just a different month. So we'll say this is
Oh, okay.
August and this is September. I like to
Oh,
make sure
okay.
we're looking at 2 months at a time to see any big trends or changes or anything like that of a studio's leads. So sorry about that. That's the only
Okay,
difference.
no problem.
And again,
yeah,
at the time that this screenshot was taken, that green one, this is not a full month's worth of data. It's just maybe a week or two in, based on how we're seeing the ad spends there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the yellow was the full month of August, and Kate, September did end up being a kind of weak compared to what we were expecting, didn't it?
September was a little weaker, yeah. Some of the back to school offers that have normally performed really well didn't perform as well this year, for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but we had people switched pretty quickly in that case, and so they did have their September rebound in a lot of cases. But it was a little bit slower in September than it had been in previous Septembers. But
Yeah.
things seem to be looking good for October right now. Everyone is back to where their averages lie as to number of leads being generated and the cost per.
And Kate, just to clarify, that ad that you were showing, was that one that somebody actually ran?
Yep, this is one. It's probably a year old now, but
I mean, I wouldn't think that
example.
one would pull very well for martial arts because it doesn't really tie in with, I mean, it shows a book bag, but it doesn't show a family doing some action or something, so.
Yep, this is just one example. So we probably had 4 ads running at the same time with different images at this time. So some of the other images were probably martial arts related, more martial arts related. We like to test both because if someone's not necessarily thinking about martial arts right from the start, they're not going to necessarily react to a martial arts image. Whereas if they're seeing more back to school related things or discipline or any of the other types of things that we push, sometimes that ends up working better. So we're making sure that we're testing a wide variety of creative to
Okay,
catch as
I
many
was just
people as
making
possible.
sure that wasn't the one that was running in September. Could be why it was so bad.
No. That's Master. That was one that was J. Joe school.
Some other school, not in. I get it.
Well, yeah, but Kate, one of the things that we know is, and you can speak to this. I may overstate it, but when the schools you're working with give you classroom pictures, sometimes exterior establishing shots of the school, short video clips of classes, that tends to work. The more personalized, the better.
Yeah,
And generally, more and more of advertising moving away from click art to things that may not even look as professional but look more personal is a good trend line to go on.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So
I have a question.
go ahead.
Are the ads configured for lead opt-in on Facebook, where they stay on Facebook and just do the leads, or do they take you to the website? And then also, once they do put their lead information in, could you talk a bit about like what the next steps are, whether they're automated or not? Like, do they I know you mentioned they might be able to schedule right then and there on another page, but a bit more detail on that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we test both keeping people on Facebook using the Facebook lead gen forms. And then we also have a landing page created for every studio as well. So we give opt-ins the option of either spot and we test both. So some schools the lead form works a little bit better, keeping people on Facebook, and in other schools, the landing page works a little bit better. So we do test both. And that landing page and lead form are created for you as well, but this is an example of just lead form. Whoops, sorry. So we're collecting their contact information, first name, last name, email, and phone number. And they're getting then access to the follow-up emails that talk about calling the school, creating their, first opportunity to create their first chance to schedule their class. If the school has a online calendar, after they fill out this form, we're sending them directly to that. So if they click continue, we're sending them directly to their online calendar so that people can book right then and there. And those online calendars can be anything that integrates with stuff. So something that's already in your school, your membership software that you're using for your school, or a lot of people use things like Calendly or Schedule Once or any of those other different online calendar systems that are available. And then after, from a user standpoint, so I'm someone opting in, they have the opportunity to book their class, but then they're receiving 5 to 6 automated emails and ideally some text messages as well, depending on the studio. And they're getting those over the span of a couple of days. So one goes pretty much automatically. The next one goes an hour or two later, the next one the next day, and so on and so forth, where they're getting a couple of reminders to get themselves booked. And then we also, from the studio side, we're creating tracking spreadsheets where all of the leads are being sent real time. So it's a spreadsheet that updates, essentially real time when someone opts in with their name, phone number, email, and all of that kind of stuff. And each studio has access so that their staff can call and, get in touch with people as soon as possible after the lead comes through. And try to get them booked for that intro class as well. So we're tracking it on multiple different levels. So from the studio standpoint, we're of course keeping track of number of new leads that come in each month and the cost and all of that kind of stuff. But then when we have our check-in calls, we're also talking through how it's going with you contacting them, how many have you enrolled, all of that kind of stuff. Like everyone has probably heard on this type of call many times, the better you are at tracking numbers, the better opportunities there are for growth. And, we want to make sure that we're tracking things throughout so that, we can really track the ROI of this campaign as opposed to just, throwing money into it and not really knowing whether it's done anything on the back end.
Yeah. And Kate, I might expand on that briefly, based on what Gemma was asking is, Gemma, in any paid advertising, you very rarely want to take them to quote unquote your homepage of your website. What you want to do is take them to a dedicated landing page. And the ideal on any dedicated landing page is that the look and feel of the ad and the look and feel of the landing page be very compatible, very similar. So there's not a jarring shift. More often than not, I see a mistake that's done there. The next thing that happens is our first step is to get name, email address, phone number, and/or name, email address, phone number, mailing address. And what I always want to have the system set up to do is text whoever is supposed to be doing the outbound call, as well as text the person who opts in simultaneously. Yep. Right. So the form comes in. In our case, Bob is getting the text. In your case, probably still you until you have some staff or Barry, but you get a text. And then the idea is the text has the name, the email, I mean, not the email, but the phone number, and perhaps any other information you would have collected. So you can initiate a call, hopefully immediately while they're still looking at the landing page. Then the follow-up sequence typically will be text, voicemail, email sequentially, right? So sequential autoresponder, text, sequential autoresponder, voicemail, sequential autoresponder, email, so that at least for the first 72 hours, they're getting kind of bombarded a lot to try to get them to either initiate a call for you or to click a scheduling link and make an appointment. Now, across all the different people we've been working with, where we find an organization like Kate's has the challenge is they'll hand off a lead, then the lead will get screwed up, and then their client will say, well, we're getting flaky leads, which occasionally is true. It's certainly true the targeting can be off, the geography can be off. But most of the time, what it is the client isn't doing a very good job of following up on those leads. And if you call them in 48 hours rather than call them in 48 seconds, what happens is the conversion rate is dramatically low. Hence, autoresponder text and autoresponder email, hopefully voicemail as well. So they're immediately getting communications. Nowadays, Kate, I'm not sure what your take on it is, but I could fill out an opt-in form at 9 a.m. and not remember that I did it at 3 p.m. There's just so much stuff coming at people, and they're reading 100 emails, and they're seeing stuff all over social media, and they're seeing other ads and one thing or another too. If you don't get them to them immediately, you often haven't gotten.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the faster you can get a hold of people after they come through, the better. And one thing too, on the landing page versus homepage, where you're sending the leads. We don't like sending any leads to the homepage because there's a lot of different things that people can do on that homepage, and they're not being focused on the offer itself. So that's why we use the landing page or the lead form in this case too. But we want to keep them focused on only being able to do one thing on the page. So on the landing pages that we create, there's no header, there's no, contact us forms. There's only the button to be able to take advantage of the offer that they have from the ad. And of course, from a branding standpoint, it's still the same. It still has your logo and it still has the same look as the ad said, like Master Oliver mentioned. But we want to make sure that they're only having the opportunity to take that one offer and not get distracted and then not end up doing anything because there's a lot of other things on your page.
Well, and even after the offer, one of the mistakes I see on that, what typically referred to as the success page, is I want to push them to a next action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which that next action can be pick up the phone and call us now. It can be here, schedule an appointment. And regardless of that, and we've done a lot of testing on this back and forth, regardless of whether they schedule their own appointment or not, that doesn't change the dynamic of we need to initiate an outbound call to them right away. Is if you don't have that human contact with them, you end up with the ratios fall apart at the point at which you didn't communicate with them. So if they just fill in an opt-in form and you don't contact them to schedule an appointment, it just falls apart. Or if they pre-schedule their own appointment, whether by text or on the landing page, whatever it might be, is if you don't connect with them and communicate with them at that point, then you end up with a high no-show rate.
Yep.
Paid or free.
That relationship, starting to get to know them and hope that you can build up your value so that they end up enrolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good. Any other questions?
Good question, Gemma.
No?
That was nice and in the weeds. Good job.
Yeah. Did that fully answer your question, Gemma, or was that more than you wanted to know about it?
Oh no, it did answer my question. I'm trying to think of more questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually the way you said at one point you're trying to get them to initiate a call. Did you mean that it's better for them to call you instead of for you to call them like right away in that 48 seconds that the lead comes in?
Well, yeah. Let me make a broader statement.
Mhm.
Having done this for 40 plus years, we used to be in the era where I run an ad in the newspaper. The only response mechanism is a phone number. All of the traffic that we had mostly were inbound info calls. And, there's no putting technology back in the bottle. But if I could wave one magic wand and wave all this stuff away, and their only response was pick up the phone and call me, and they were willing to pick up the phone and call me, I would do that in a heartbeat, right? So what I mean by that is them initiating the inbound call to me is always going to be best if I answer the phone. Now, I can't tell you how many different companies, some big ones, I've dealt with, and our associates have dealt with in the last 48 hours that don't answer their damn phones. It's a misnomer that companies make, is that they don't need to answer the phone because all their traffic's coming in online or one thing or another. And even some of the big retailers, they don't, to find a phone number to call is difficult.
Yeah.
That doesn't negate that we want to communicate with them while they're on the web page. So what I mean by that is when we build a homepage for a website, we're going to have the contact us and the phone number everywhere. But most actions that people are going to take are somewhat more passive on their end. They're going to fill out a form requesting a free offer, requesting free information. The next page will give them an opportunity to initiate a call with us. But, even if they do, I still want to be initiating that outbound call while they're on the website.
Okay.
So in other
Yeah.
words, I'm not going to wait 4 hours,
Mhm.
send you 5 emails and 4 texts of, hey, call us, waiting around hoping that you do. And the other thing that'll happen though, if you call them while they're opting in, they're more likely to answer the phone. But what we also try to do is get a contact record in their phone, sometimes it's called a V card, so that they have our contact information in their phone and they know if we're calling that it's us. But what will happen for most outbound calls is I'll initiate a phone call. They don't answer. I leave a voicemail and then I text them. Then they'll respond to the text. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to keep the conversation going by text. I want to use the text to get them to answer the phone or to call me so that we can have a human to human conversation rather than a digital one.
Yeah, and on our after someone submits the offer form, we do send them to what we call a thank you page. So giving them that next step. And since most people do come in from mobile, we do link the phone number for the studio within that page. So all they have to do is click to call. And they're able to do that right then and there if they have the opportunity. But we're also telling them, keep an eye out for calls from blank, 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 blank phone number, so that they can hopefully recognize it and, it starts to register in their minds that they're going to be receiving calls from that number. Whether it works or not, who knows, but we're at least putting it out there.
That is a good point, Kate. That just dawned on me. What we should be doing on success pages is here, download our contact record.
We should, yeah.
Yeah, we should start setting that up for each of the schools. It just, we do it automatically by text, but that'd be since they're on a mobile anyway, that would make sense in many cases. Do you have the stats top of your head on what percentage are responding on an iPhone or an Android versus on a desktop?
I don't have them on the top of my head, but for the martial arts offers like this, it is mostly mobile. I don't know between Android and iPhone.
Yeah.
But it is probably 80-90% mobile, since most people
When
on their phones.
when I've looked at it, it was ranging 85 to 90% mobile, heavily weighted towards iPhones.
Yeah.
So iOS was in the more upscale market that we're looking for, iOS was predominant.
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, Kate, I have a question here.
Sure.
What's the budget allocation between Facebook and Google ads versus other source of marketing? What is percentage that you recommend and you found across the line to be more effective?
Yeah, so on Facebook, we start most of our studios at $20 per day. That does vary a little bit based on the geographic location and what that specific area's market is like. But we generally start people there. We see what kind of results that they're getting, and then we ideally are scaling it because there's more, it needs to be more leads coming through, and we're be able to scale it because the studio is converting and enrolling people off of that at a good rate. And so, keep throwing fire on it. As to the differentiation between Facebook and Google and which ones are which, Facebook is more going after cold people. So I would recommend a higher budget on Facebook than I would on Google, though Google from an ad platform is a little bit more expensive. So kind of like a 75-25 or a 60-40, where Facebook is leading as to the differentiation between what you're spending on the two. And Master Oliver, you may have a different recommendation there, but Google is collecting all those people who are intent based already. So you don't necessarily need as much as going after people who are in a cold market and not necessarily thinking about you yet, as that's the case on Facebook. But I'll let you make your
Yeah,
recommendation.
I might give a little bit more complicated answer, Kate. To a great extent, Bill, I think that's kind of old thinking. I hear a little bit of 30 years old Nick Kokinas in that question, and I think he was wrong in the way that he looked at it then. But what was true, if I go back to the 70s when June Reed was in the Washington Post and on TV, is the tracking mechanisms at the time were not nearly as sophisticated as they are now, right? Is what I know is if I have somebody good placing Google ads for me, they're going to be able to figure out how much click inventory there is on Google, meaning how much do I have to spend and how much do I have to bid on a click in order to basically capture everybody who's looking within any number of long tail keywords. How many people are searching for martial arts lessons or comparable in my geography? And what I'd like from Google is to get in front of all of them, because they're out actively looking for martial arts lessons in my area, right? Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to give Google more money than it takes to get in front of all of them, because there is a reason why Paige and Bryn are two of the most wealthiest people in the world and are basically semi-retired and flying around on their private planes or their private island on their 300-foot yachts. Is they'll take every penny that you give them. So you need to be paying attention so that you're getting all of the click inventory, but you're not getting more than that. Same thing is true of Facebook. Zuckerberg just bought a 300-foot yacht that at least I saw that online, if that was a true statement. And Facebook loves you to give them more money than you need to give them. And what we do want to do is get frequent exposure to the right target audience. The way that we track that, though, is the cost per opt-in. If I went through the same numbers and let's say the cost per opt-in was costing me $100 per opt-in. Well, if I'm doing a good job converting, which you do a pretty good job, but if I'm doing a good job of converting them to appointment, good job converting them to intros, good job converting them to enrollment, I'm still okay with that, right? I'm getting 100% of my money back the day they enroll. So I'm still going to be putting money into it to get the numbers that come up with that. But what I want to do is I don't want to throw good money after bad on either platform, but I also don't want to underspend. So if I look like at a formula, and I used to say this out loud 30 years ago, well, let's say a martial arts school should have 15% of their gross revenue going into their advertising budget, or Nick might have said 10%. He used to say $10 per info call, which was a ridiculous number back when he was saying it, because it never happened. But whatever the number was, it was always, you got to condition it with, well, am I doing a startup? Am I a school that's looking to grow aggressively? Am I basically maxed out and I just am out there for exposure? And then the second question is how do I balance online marketing with all of the other stuff? And most of what we have defaulted to that's offline is either paid media, mostly direct mail, to keep following up on leads that we generated online. Mostly we're not doing a lot of cold direct mail, although it works. Most of the other stuff is stuff where there's not a heavy advertising cost. In other words, years ago I did, oftentimes I'd spend 40,000 in a month on TV, or I'd spend 3,000 a week in newspaper ads. Most of the offline advertising we're doing nowadays is live event marketing, the cost of the booth, the cost of the people, but it's not, I'm buying a bunch of newspaper ads and therefore using offline media in that way. Does that all make sense, Bill?
Yes, it does, but I really never used the Google Ads. I was very successful in bringing in a sufficient business through, Facebook. So, but right now I'm looking to balance it out. So I would like to have an idea of what it's gonna look like in terms of what's the budget allocation for, for the Google Ads. That's something I've never really emphasized on.
Well, you don't want to allocate between Facebook and Google. What you want to do is you want to either learn yourself or have somebody who's good at that. That's not something that link selling handles, but it is something that Rev Marketing handles, for instance. You want to look at the click inventory and then figure out what level of budget you're going to need to put into Google in order to get the right traffic. I mean, you're in a very urban, high density area, so there may well be quite a bit of click inventory, but that really shouldn't have an impact on your Facebook ads. And Bill, my biggest critique of your numbers just a couple of days ago is you got to get out in the community and you got to do a better job at internal referral systems, working with elementary schools, working in live events and so forth, and get less dependent upon your traffic being exclusively online.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, don't take money out of Facebook to put it into Google. Put money into Google where you get a positive return on investment on Google. Keep money in Facebook where you get a positive return on investment on Facebook. And occasionally you find a geography where it's hard to get, good results, but in an area, he's in the Bronx, an area like the Bronx, I mean, that's a target rich environment.
Yep. Yeah. And it's something that we're closely monitoring all the time. So, some studios have a fluctuating budget where if it's going really well, we're, scaling it and going a little bit higher. If it's not, then we're pulling it back a little bit. It just kind of depends on what the situation is for each studio. And that's something that we work together with in a one-to-one basis, to make sure that, you're showing that positive ROI as much as possible.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions? Those are all good questions.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you explain like the cost per opt-in? Like how like different schools have like different like such widely, because you see numbers like 10 and then like 70s, like some in the 50s. Because I would guess that you're running like similar type ads if you're doing it.
Sometimes.
I was curious.
Yeah. Yeah, most in general are pretty similar. But sometimes a school will want to run something really specific and we'll do that. It just kind of depends. So, especially during the summer months, sometimes people are running summer camp, or maybe not in the summer itself, but preparing for summer camp. So kind of depending on what's running, and the offer has a big impact on the cost per opt-in. And then geography is the other big thing. So an example here, we have Mercer Island, who is a tiny island in Seattle. They have only a very, very small specific geographic radius that they can target, whereas Others have a little bit more of a broad area that they're targeting. So if you're targeting a really small area, the cost is automatically going to go up a little bit because the availability of people within that area is already limited. And so that's the main differentiation between them. It's offer based, depending on which offer people are running. And, a paid offer is going to be more expensive per opt-in than a free offer. So I don't have the offers listed here as to what everyone was running, but most likely
That's true.
a
That's
lot of
true.
these lower cost opt-ins are probably a free offer. And then some of the higher ones sometimes have a paid offer going where, it's $27 to opt in and you're collecting that payment either right away or at the first intro class. So that's a lot of the variation that we're seeing.
Interesting. So if your school is in a dense area, do you tend to do better with Facebook? Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's worked in every situation. Again, it
Okay.
still depends on the school and their ability to convert. Don't get me wrong. And there is on Facebook or any ad platform out there ever, you're going to have a certain percentage of junk that comes through. So I don't want to, sugarcoat anything. Like there is going to be some people that come through that never end up converting or never end up answering the phone and so on and so forth. But as long as your
Mhm.
percentages are staying high where you're contacting people and getting a hold of most of them, then everything's going to work out pretty well. But honestly, we've run in every single market out there. And like this guy, Kobe, is in a tiny small town, Minnesota.
Mankato,
This one's that
Minnesota.
Yep, this one is that tiny island off of Seattle. This one's outside Chicago, I think. This one's in I forget which city in Texas he's in, but it's one of the cities in Texas. Detroit, small town, California. We've run everything and have had success in every market. We've run in New York City, in Harlem, and the financial district as well. So lots of different things that we've run, and we keep a close eye on how it's performing, and we adjust the targeting radius regularly based on feedback that we're getting from you guys as to how the quality is looking, all of that kind of stuff. So
Great. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'll give you one more question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
You said you test lots of different creatives and offers. Did off the top of your head, are there any that really hit with the women's audience or like women's self-defense audience?
Yeah. So in those cases, I would recommend the images of women in self-defense opportunities. Like the class photos. That was a terrible description, but women class photos,
Yeah.
and that are showing your target market actually performing and actually, in a class is the ones
Yeah.
that worked really well.
Okay.
We've also used some like graphic image, like designed images that showcase a lot of like protection and, um, self-confidence and being able to protect yourself, just kind of like buzzwords like that we've used a lot as well in that case too.
Kind of like the backpack photo.
Kind of
but-
like the backpack photo, but a little bit just of a different look.
Okay.
More of a
Those
graphic than the
Yeah.
shots.
Were
But
there
both of them
any
work well.
were there any like messaging in the copy that like tended to hit home more with people?
Yeah, so in this case, let's see, a lot of like the pain-based messaging, so really hitting on the emotional side of everything.
Mhm.
We've used some story type copy in those ads,
Mhm.
talking about and transformational copy in those. And then yeah, less like markety type ads than it is focused on, more of the emotional side of why it's important to take self-defense classes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there's always a question of whether you're, with the adult market, whether you're focused on fitness or you're focused on pure self-defense. Um, um, moving away from fear or pain tends to be more powerful than moving towards, desired outcomes. And so, keeping in mind in a situation like what you're targeting, Gemma, worst case scenarios, scary scenarios, tend to move people more emotionally. Well, good. Kate, for any other questions that people have, you are in the discussion forum, and so they can certainly ask questions of you or of me or any of us in the discussion forum. Hopefully, everybody gets used to being in there very regularly. Um, and Kate, for some of the smaller schools, Gemma and Brary would be in that category. We've talked about creating some ramp up opportunities for you to work with people. What's happened in the past is the kind of the level of intensity that you were working with the schools and the level of results that we were targeting tended to be $25,000 or $30,000 a month schools was a good fit, and the smaller ones it wasn't. But you've got a pretty good ramp up strategy now, I think, in place that we put together to let some of the smaller schools have somebody facilitate this stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, happy to talk about any of that further. Normally, the full investment less than 1,500, including ad spend for everyone for the month, including ad spend. So a couple of students off of that normally covers it.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to Bill's question here. What we want to be doing is looking at a return on investment.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the cheapest thing we can do is be out at a live event at Halloween. But what we want to be doing is getting both the exposure in the area, but getting a consistent lead flow from different sources. The main thing I worry about with schools getting the most of their traffic online is usually they do a pretty bad job of following up. So that's what we teach is the immediacy of the follow up and the persistence, I guess is the right word, of follow up as well.
Yep. And we like to make sure that we're having a well-rounded approach from the ads perspective. So for a lot of schools that we work with, if they are doing an event in the community, we can do some really geolocated target ads in that target area while that event is happening and the day, leading up to it or something like that, depending on what the event is. So we're making sure that that message and that branding is getting put out there, both from we want them to take the offer, but we also want to reinforce what they maybe saw at the event or at their kid's school or whatever the aspect is. Or if you did a direct mailer, that, sorry, that is a list that we can also target in our ads as well. So lots of different things that we can do to make sure everything's interacting.
How tightly does Facebook allow you to geo target nowadays?
Within a mile radius. So very small target options are available.
Right. And
Well, we can put in a specific address and it can target 1 mile radius around that. So that's what we do a lot of times. If there's, a fall fest event happening or something, we'll do something with that address and then target the area around it. And sometimes we go a little bit broader depending. So, if a fall fest is pulling in people from the 5 mile radius, we can do that. Just kind of depends on the event itself.
Yeah. And and a lot of, I'll use our Thornton school as an example. If you look at their location, you can go north for, basically for forever, but you can go north 5, 6, 7, 8 miles. People are likely to drive south given where it's located. But when we go south, if we go more than about a mile, all of a sudden we end up in neighborhoods we don't want to be targeting. So that's one of the issues of working tightly back and forth.
Yeah.
Is to get the geographic targeting. Krista and Jason are more obvious because they're surrounded by water. One's legitimately an island. One is the north end of Seattle. But then we've got to target because nobody's going to get on the ferry and come over from, Bainbridge to
Absolutely.
train at Jason's school. So, but oftentimes it's here's neighborhoods we don't want to be targeting. You know, we're getting too many people who are too far away, or we're getting too many people who are broke, or you know, whatever it might be, and then fine tuning that geographic targeting.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I say radius, it's hardly ever a full circle. A lot of times the radius looks like a triangle or splotches because we're excluding zip codes here and there. So we're able to get really creative and really specific in the targeting.
Yeah, yeah. Now they've started to get more sensitive about psychographic and demographic marketing. If Gemma wanted to just target teenage girls and adult women, is that something that's fairly easy to do now, for instance?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I know some of the racial or you know,
Yeah, racial
demographic
stuff
and so
definitely not.
Yeah.
But there's definitely from an age and from we can't target 8-year-olds. Don't get me wrong. Like they need to be
Right.
normally 18 and older is kind of where we focus. But the option is available to have subsets within that.
Yeah, but what I was always more concerned with is targeting moms, right? So
Definitely doable.
targeting moms of because that was where we get most of the response with the kids market is, you know,
Yep.
getting mom to respond.
Yeah, probably. I don't know this number off the top of my head, but a majority of the opt-ins that we get for all of our studios are moms. The mom is the one
Mhm.
doing the action. So we do that. We also do a lot of grandparent targeting too, especially around the holiday season as a gift opportunity for their grandkids. So lots of
Mhm.
fun things that we can do and play with in those cases as well, as to based on how we're targeting and who we're going after.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good, good. On that note, we'll call it a day on at least on the Facebook stuff. If anybody has any other questions, and Kate, it's been great, and you're in the Facebook group.
Yep.
Anybody who would like to talk to you to work with you, we'll repost your contact information in there. But any questions they have, they can contact you as well. Again, it's Kate with Link Selling, so we'd certainly recommend if you're not working with them already that you talk to them at least.
Yeah, I will post in the group. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great having you today.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you,
seeing you
Kate.
guys. Sure. Have a good one.
Good. Any other questions on anything at all before we call it a day today?
I just had 2 events, which I was pretty happy
Yep,
with.
good.
But a
Good.
trunk or treat this last weekend. I got 2 more coming up this coming weekend too, so it's pretty excited. So one of the events I got like 20, actually I have it down, like 20 appointments.
Mhm.
My phone's not working now. 20 appointments and something like 24 leads. And the other one I had like
Okay.
20 leads and 24. So it's something like 40 something leads.
Good.
And my ratios of return were unsatisfactory. It was something like a third. For the people
What do
actually
you mean
coming
by okay.
coming to the appointments of all the appointments I set. So it was kind of low. I know my issue is like contacting them. So
Mhm.
like everyone got 1 email and they got 1 text, which I don't think
Mhm.
is anywhere near enough from everything you're saying.
Mhm.
So, and I know you guys mentioned also about like the software. There was like something for like $10 a month that like that I think Mr. Dunn was talking about that would help like blitz the people, because I can see more of my problem is like just getting to everyone was just crazy. It was like a whirlwind this week, you know,
Mhm.
and I'm set for another whirlwind coming up. So I guess that's my next step. You know, that might not be for today, but I need some help on like being able to get everybody. I need a strategy.
Well, one of the apps that we recommend is Schedule Once, aka Once Up. And what it is it's a calendar app. It's like Calendarly is another option on that. But with Schedule Once, you can program it where it's linked to, you know, iCal on an iPhone, or it's linked to Google Calendar if you're using Google Calendar. But what it'll do is if you set it up properly, it'll do 4 emails and 4 texts. So you can set it up to once the appointment is scheduled to immediately text and email them. Then you can have it text them, an hour before the appointment, the morning of the appointment, the day before the appointment, all as reminders. The emails will have a link where they can reschedule the appointment if they need. The text doesn't have that. And you can at the right level of subscription, you can define what the email is. So in other words, you can send them a YouTube video link or something in the email so that they have some more information about the program. So that would be one way that automatically everybody would get 4 texts and 4 emails without you having to do anything other than making sure the data was entered, the appointment was entered.
Okay, what system was that? Was that the Google you said? Because you said it Schedule One.
It's called Schedule Once, or the company is now called Once Hub. If you go to scheduleonce.com or oncehub.com, either way, you'll get there.
Once Hub.
And it's very inexpensive. It's $20 a month or $40 a month, or something like that. That's one thing. The second thing is to take a look at what information you're giving when you make the appointment. I see a lot of people aren't giving them much when they make the appointment. Hey, high five, look forward to seeing you Tuesday, and then they're off. I like to send them with a big packet of information about the program, including I wrote down the date and time of the appointment and has a little map on how to find us and the mailing address and the phone number and all that kind of stuff. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you just do need to be initiating outbound calls to people. From a confirming the appointment standpoint, my rule of thumb is always confirm it the night before, confirm it the day of the appointment, where I'm calling and talking to a live human. So I don't mean I call and I leave a voicemail. I call until I get a live human, and then I verify that the time is going to be good. And what you do find is somebody who had an appointment who no-shows is much less likely to show up than somebody who made an appointment, then you contact and reschedule that appointment. So I don't want to let them no-show on me and then be trying to follow up. I'd much rather confirm it ahead of time. If they need to reschedule, then they reschedule.
Okay. Yeah, because I need better systems, because it was just like it was overwhelming, to try to get to everybody and text everybody and stuff like that. So I need an easy system. Even like some of the events I had on Friday night, and I scheduled them for Saturday morning, so to try to get the least amount of time to get them in. So even calling would be challenging.
Yeah.
But it was my first go through.
Say that again. What would be challenging?
Where my event would be was on a Friday night, and then I had the appointment set for Saturday, or the earliest ones. I would give a couple choices, but Saturday was the first one. So having the event, call them that night for the next day would be difficult.
Well, because you just
I just did the event.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was my first go through, so of drinking through a fire hose. So
yeah, the thing I would work on adding is putting something physically in the mail to everybody. And again, the argument that I'll hear is, I talked to them on Friday, they're coming in on Saturday or Monday, it's not going to have time to get to them. Well, that's okay, right? If they showed up on time and came to the appointment, great. Not going to hurt anything that I dripped on them physically. If they don't show up for the appointment or reschedule the appointment, it helps that I mailed them something, and it's certainly worth that. Again, typically we're finding the show rate to be 50% or better, and the busier an event is, meaning the less time I have to talk to each individual, the harder it is to keep the show rates high. The more time I have to talk to people and build relationships, and then the show rates stay a little bit higher. But it's also a factor of, did I contact them and confirm? Did I mail them some information in the mail? Did I drip on them by email and text with additional information? All of those are factors.
Yeah, mine was all minimal on that, all minimal. Like I said, I barely got a text off, and I got an email off, but that was just 1-on-1 and no call. And even the first event was
Well, you did.
fantastic.
You didn't confirm the ones on Saturday.
No, like not by phone, by text and email. They all got but just one, like not even like 4, like you were saying. You know, that would be blitzing them would be way better. And the first one was a fantastic event, but I was by myself. It was the first one. It was a trunk or treat. I was able to do the wheel. They win a prize, and then they put them through the process, get the appointment made. Next person. We want to spin the wheel. It was like an endless. But I was by myself. So the second event was I brought 3 people with me. So because the first one, if I had 4 people, I would have literally had 4 times the amount of appointments. It was like that target rich. The second one was more. The second one was more of a like an Oktoberfest. Like I think every karate school ever made was there. I think every business ever made was also there. It was like endless, tents. So I mean, 1 out of 4 people are doing a good job with the tents. In other words, they're hawking the people going by. So it was a much harder.
I would say that's being generous in most cases.
Yeah, it's 1 out of 4. Yeah. So, but they're getting hawked like the whole way. So it was 4 of us, and it was twice the amount of time, and I got around the same amount of leads as the first one. So,
well, the contrast tends to be a lot of times is the trunk or treat type of things. People kind of get forced to go buy everything, where the other events that people kind of wander around aimlessly and you're trying to get their attention. And so like in the trunk or treat case, the spin wheel and all that stuff doesn't do you much, much additional value. The big events where you're trying to get their attention, it does. So, there is a contrast there.
Right. So yeah, I'm looking forward to my round 2. I got this one coming up. I got 2 of them coming up. So,
Master Oliver,
and you've still got 30 some leads to follow up on.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I mean, and then you don't want to let them age too much. So you want to stay on top of them and keep following up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
kind of what you just said. If I have an event on the weekend, because right now I only have classes on the weekend, and they schedule for the next weekend. When should I be calling them to confirm that appointment?
Well, what I would want to do is I mean, frankly, the first suggestion is get some classes that aren't in the weekend so you can get them in quicker. But what I would want to be doing is initiate an outbound call to them maybe on Monday or Tuesday, so you build some relationship. 2 weeks is too far. A week is is quite a ways away. My rule of thumb's always been 72 hours. If I don't get them in within 48 to 72 hours, they're going to forget we exist. As far as confirming an appointment, I always do that the night before and the day of the appointment. So, Barry, if you had appointments coming in at noon, I'd want to make sure at 9 or 10 a.m. I'm calling to confirm them all. So that day, again, people can make an appointment, say the night before they're going to show up, and the day of they forget about it. So, you do want to take the responsibility to be, on the phone, following up, getting hold of people, and so forth. But Jim, I would, if you schedule them a week out, make sure by Monday or Tuesday you're communicating with them. And hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you this coming weekend. I was a little rushed out at XYZ. I wanted to learn a little more about what you're interested in, what you're trying to accomplish, what you've done in the past. So have an opportunity to have a more in detail conversation and build some relationship.
Okay. Last question. Because I do these events, I've always had events like this every month, 2 to 3. They're paid because so I'm so specialized when people look for self-defense workshops, they find my website, they pay for a workshop ahead of time for, like, I'm a program partner with the Girl Scouts, for example. I'm on the Girl Scouts website as a approved vendor. So anyways, I get these. I had one on Sunday, and never have I tried to book trials. Tried to book at the event, like you said, but this one I had on Sunday. I ordered the 50 clipboards, printed out the sign-up sheet, and 8 people at the end came and filled out the form and everything. My question is about the info packet. When I have these events, should I be giving that info packet I make to everyone, or only the people that come and actually fill out that form at the end of the workshop to take a class? And sometimes these events have up to 100 people, usually around 40.
Okay, well, it's you're asking the wrong question.
Okay.
Is you should be having them fill out the information, doing a if you want to call it a waiver, but an information sheet on the way in the door,
Okay.
not after the fact.
Yes.
So you want to capture contact information on everybody. If I can
Yes.
do it ahead of the event, I'll get it ahead of the event. So we go into, for instance, an elementary school, and I'm going to teach 100 kids. I want to get permission slips out the week before, get them back in, collect them before I ever do the class. In the case of what you're doing, if you have an event you're going to do where the parents are going to be there, you can collect the information on the way in the door. I'd be even happier if I had it ahead of time. An online registration that says we're going to be there. That'd be essentially the same as a landing page. But if I have, let's say, 100 people there, my mission is to get contact information for 100 people and to make an appointment for 100 people. And so maybe I don't end up getting an appointment for everybody, but if I go do the presentation and I say, if you're interested in more information, come over here and we'll schedule an intro, you get a tiny fraction. Not that you get zero, but you get close to zero, right? It's the problem with, people will do birthday parties at the school. And then at the end, they'll say, hey, if you guys enjoyed it, come over here, we'll schedule an appointment. Well, most of the people who don't schedule an appointment, it's not that they weren't interested. It's they go, well, she's going to be busy. I'll give them a call. I got the name, I got the phone number, one thing or another, and then you never hear from them again, because then there's psychology for this. Pretty much as soon as they walk through the door, they forgot about you, and they're on to the next thing. So what you want to do is get the contact information on the way in the door or ahead of the event. You want to schedule the follow-up appointment ahead of the event, not at the end of the event. And then follow up from there. And for anybody who doesn't schedule an appointment, you want to give them a full packet of information. Likelihood of them initiating a call to you is pretty minimal. But I'd rather get literature out than not get literature out.
Okay.
It's again, I use the example of elementary school, but it's certainly true in a Girl Scout setting or a Boy Scout setting. Biggest Girl Scout event that I remember doing was like 238 Girl Scouts, in one little setting. And we were scrambling. I mean, it was scrambling to get all the information on the way in the door, scrambling to talk to people. Luckily, I brought a pretty good crew to, talk to all the parents. But it is the problem that people do in elementary schools is, they teach a class, they run an event, and then they pass out flyers and say, hey, give us a call. And then they're fluxum on why there's a low response rate. Well, if I had their contact information and been able to call, text, email, mail them stuff, I would have gotten a pretty good response.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense, Gemma?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about so when an organization, like one person from the organization books a workshop for their 50 Girl Scouts.
Mhm.
Should I tell that person that each of those people should go to this link to fill out the parent permission slip? And that's where I'll get those kids' information ahead of time? Does that make sense?
Well, it depends, right?
Okay.
Yeah, to be fair, if they are organized enough that
Mhm.
they have everybody's mobile number and email address,
Yeah,
and they can send out the link and get that to happen, sure,
right.
right? If they're not, and frankly, most of these organizations I find not is more common, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, I might say to the mom, everybody needs to go to this link and fill this thing out, which one mistake is I give them a link that's like 92 characters rather than, you know, Girl Scouts with Gemma.com, right? You know, I give them something that's complicated. But most of them don't get their act together enough. They send everybody one email and think they've communicated. I'm
yeah,
still going to want the physical backup of I've got clipboards, everybody fills it out on the way in. And, you know, oftentimes, and I can hear, you know, a lot of people would think, well, they paid me to come, you know, are they going to be annoyed that I'm marketing? No, you know, I just tell them, look, our insurance requires, and it's important for us to know everybody who participated in the class and have a waiver. And they can't go to the trampoline park or, you know, a birthday party and without filling that out. It's not like it's
yeah.
something that people are not used to.
Should I require the parents to come? Usually half of the parents come, but should I require
Yeah,
that all the parents come as well?
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely. But sure, I mean, if you can get them to distribute a landing page and get it filled out ahead of time, even better. Because guess
Mhm.
what? I can get an appointment ahead of time. I can drip on them information ahead of time. I can here's what we're going to cover when we do the session. You know, I can my guess is most of these things, if there's 50 girls going to be there, maybe you get 15 or 20 of them to fill it out ahead of time. So you want
Yeah.
to have the, you know, on premises manual backup as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just that one following your advice already got me 7 more leads than I ever got from these workshops with tons of people where I always just assume, oh, and they're always great, but I assume that because it was great and people had fun, then they're gonna somehow reach out to me and just come sign up. And that
Yeah.
almost has never happened.
Yeah. You think, oh, I'm gonna do this big dog and pony show for them, and they're gonna have a great time, and then they're gonna rush home and call me, and then you never hear from them. No, they just forget you exist. You know,
Yeah.
there's no reason to take it personally, but you know,
Mhm.
we know if we don't have the ability to proactively follow up on them, and first highest priority is make an appointment on the spot.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, on that note, we'll call it a day, and go from there. And Jake, we were going to follow up. You're an hour and 15 minutes late, Jake.
Yeah, I was a little confused. I thought it was 2 o'clock, and then I logged on at 2 o'clock. I waited like 8 minutes past 2 Eastern, and it was still a previously recorded video of some female. So then I checked my email, and it said 3